I'm Rick Levin. I'm the former CEO of Coursera, and I'm still involved on as a senior advisor in helping with the workforce transformation that I'm going to be talking about. So what I want to talk about, it'll be partly about Coursera, but also partly about a major trend that's occurring in workforce education that I think is enabled by technology and is going to make a major difference in the world. And we're just at the beginning of this revolution, and it's addressing a very old and important, or at least a fairly old and important need. So what about the need for skills acquisition? Well, you can go back to the advent of distributed computing. I mean, so much changed in the sort of economy in essentially the labor economics of the United States economy, and to a great extent other parts of the world as well, in about 1985 or so, as distributed computing became widespread in offices around the world, and it actually changed the skill requirements of a great many jobs over the next 10, 20 years. And it was at that time, really you can pinpoint it pretty precisely, that the real wages of the mass of Americans flattened, stopped growing, and that the skill gap between the highly educated and the less well-educated grew. In 1985, the skill premium for a college degree over someone with a high school diploma was about 40%. Lifetime income increased about 40%. By 2005, that had grown to 70% where it is today. So we're paying more for skills, and why? Because effectively, it's the supply and demand. The demand for skilled labor was growing faster than its supply. And this is not, so I want to emphasize, this is not about AI. This is not about what's going to happen in the next 20 years. It's already happened in the last 20 years, the last 30 years. And we have had a widening gap in earned income between those with skills and those without. And there are shortages in many parts of the economy for people with high skills, and there are even shortages in certain middle skill jobs that are important. And the labor market, the educational system has not responded adequately to these changes. We're not getting the flow through. I mean, in my own view, the biggest single culprit for the failure in the education system is, you're going to find this interesting, is the growth of entitlements at the federal level. Why? Because if you look at what's happened to state budgets, the share of them that is, and we have Governor Markell here in the audience, I can testify to this, the share of state budgets that went to Medicare, Medicaid, and other income subsidy programs where cost sharing was required by the federal government, just squeezed every kind of other essential expenditure out of state budgets, so that our state universities have been just trampled in the last 20 years, and have found it very difficult to keep from having increasing tuition rises and so forth. Also, the performance of the system, partly because of this starvation of resources, is not improved, because even though we still send 60 to 70% of people in the age cohort to college, only half of them finish. About 30% finish, which is no better than it was 30 years ago. So the education system has not really helped feed the pipeline to develop the skills that the modern economy needs. And second, the opportunities for training beyond the college years, beyond age 22, have been also severely limited. Our workforce development programs, our assistance to people displaced from jobs to reskill them from the governmental side, also those programs have not grown. They've not been substantially effective. And so the need's been around for a long time. AI will only exacerbate it. More automation will just make the problem worse, and it's time that we do something about it. And the assertion here would be, if we want to achieve both economic growth and social justice, substantial investment in skilled training is needed in the years ahead. Okay, that's the foundation. Now, good news, because there's been a major innovation on the supply side that's going to affect this. We talked about how the traditional educational system has not responded, but we have a major change on the supply side, which is the availability of inexpensive, high-quality education that's now available online. And that, I think, is leading to what I call the coming transformation in workforce development, that we're going to be able to do this way more cost-effectively. We will be able to do some of it at the entry level. It's not a perfect replacement for an actual college experience, but it's a whole lot better than we can do and we have been doing at the post-entry stage of the labor force, where adaptation and the acquisition of new skills throughout one's career is increasingly required. I mean, the millennials are going to have 13 or 15 jobs throughout their lifetime. They're going to, skills are changing, skill requirements of jobs are changing, and so continual lifelong training is going to be needed. So this is where effectively employer-based training comes in as a possibility for really making a difference. If you look at employer-based training, even 5 years ago, before the MOOC revolution, company training programs focused primarily on, communicating company policies, building the company's culture, and overwhelmingly with compliance-related education. And yes, executives and senior management often got opportunities to go to high-touch, high-cost, really terrific executive programs at leading business schools and in some cases engineering schools. So there was, for the top tier, and I told you already, there's been an opening gap. So we're exacerbating it by training the people at the top extremely well. They got high-touch programs, but the other people working in a corporation or organization, their only access, the only thing that could be done for them if they really wanted to pick up new skills was go back to school. Now they could do that part-time, they could stay in the job, take night classes, and so forth. And they would get reimbursed by their employees under the tuition reimbursement programs of the federal government, which is a good program. But the truth is only 1% of employees use tuition reimbursement, which is pathetically low. So what's changed? Today, we have a completely different set of available opportunities for people in the workforce because we have increased quality and expanded the quantity of learning options available through online education. Now, I think if you went to the lunchtime MOOC panel, something like 9,000 courses are available on the various MOOC platforms, taught by top-tier universities and by industry experts. And many in feed are at a cost that are, on a credit hour basis, compared to college courses, are 10 or 20% of the cost of the traditional on-campus options. The major focus so far has been on courses on technical skills, IT skills, computer software development skills, and data science. But there's increasing uptake also on courses that give basic business skills, management techniques, personal development skills, public speaking, business writing, and so forth. So there's an abundant supply of valuable content now available. Excuse me. About 2 years ago, Coursera introduced, and more or less along the same time frame, Udacity got into this game, Pluralsight also, and a little bit later edX, and introduced an offering to organizations, actually, truthfully, businesses, governments, and NGOs. And what we're able to do is, of course, offer something very attractive to an employer to fill a gap that wasn't there before. Companies didn't have a way to really bring people up to skill. I mean, teaching them new computer programming languages or teaching them the techniques of big data manipulation. The corporate trainers just weren't up to doing it at the quality level of, the Wharton School or Stanford Computer Science Department. And so we have now remarkable new content. The offering we give to corporations involves, of course, certification of successful completion by the university sponsors or company sponsors. We curate the content for companies. We do a very elaborate, matching of the content of our courses to the skill requirements of the jobs for the particular people that the company HR department wants to move forward. We give very detailed tracking. We've talked about all the data analytics that are now available through these learning platforms. And in fact, we give it all to the companies. They can see the progress of individual learners through the courses in a pretty fine-grained way. And they can see where intervention might be needed by a corporate tutor or some kind of assisted help from people in the company to sort of help people through those courses. We also wrap around this various professional services, like we've learned from our experience now in 2 years how to get more learner engagement, what the company can do to promote learner engagement, and we give assistance, advice, and share best practices around all of that. We've used the Burning Glass data and other sources in order to essentially show to companies what the market value of various skill acquisition is, and then we compare the profiles of companies' employees in terms of what courses they're taking and what skills they are developing to see what kind of match they are and whether it's an appropriate deviation from industry norms. It's really interesting, actually, that we have all this data. It turned out when we entered, one of the reasons we entered the enterprise business, we noted that for many large companies, we had as many as 50,000 Coursera users in the company. So that people were already taking our courses. They just were doing it without company sponsorship, without formal structure, without programs, and most of them were just actually, like it's true of these freemium products, just taking them for free and not getting the certifications. So when we go into a company, a large company, we typically will have 10,000 or more course enrollments as data to sort of calibrate, what are your people already doing and how well are they doing at it. So for example, we can show, here's the profile of your company across these various skills like machine learning and data analysis and Python, and we can sort of see from the progress their employees have made in courses, are they merely just watching videos? Like, are they just rememberers? Or, is that what they're getting? Or do they actually understand because they've taken the tests and quizzes and done satisfactorily? Or have they really applied the knowledge in those courses by doing a project or some kind of self-directed contribution? So we can give quite a bit of feedback to the companies. We also can demonstrate to companies that these courses have impact because back in 2015, we published an article in the Harvard Business Review showing the outcome, what our learners self-reported about the outcomes of taking or earning a certificate in our Coursera courses. And we've continued that now. Now we just routinely survey everyone 6 months after they finish a course. So we have a mountain of data on outcomes, albeit self-reported, which is not perfect, but it's better than nothing. And what we find is of people that get certificates, 9% of them say that they got a raise or a promotion. 38%, let's see, well, you see it. 18% actually moved to a new function. They changed their career. They changed the type of job they had. 38% improved their candidacy for a new job. 56% felt they were better equipped for their current job. And, overall, well over 80% of them felt that they'd gotten demonstrable career benefits from this kind of education. I'll just give you a couple of examples of the kinds of use cases we've encountered. So this is new to companies. I mean, literally, they couldn't do this 5 years ago. So, it's brand new. So and I think we heard from Anat Agrawal of edX at lunchtime, if you were there, that actually this works best when you get in at the CEO level, because then they drive the change onto their HR departments who otherwise might be a little slow and reluctant on the uptake. We've actually found some pretty good success with chief HR officers, in fact, but it is true that if it comes right from the top, it tends to work best. But the companies at this stage are still sort of searching for the right model. So we see very different models. So this is a major New York bank that won't let us use their name, but if you know anything about custodial banks, you know who this is. And they decided, we want to go narrow. We want to go into depth with certain categories of employees and really teach them a skill that's important. And so they basically onboard every new software developer they hire and went around and did the people they already were working there and took them through a 5-course specialization. That's a lot of time. That's a 60, 80 hours of video. It's a major commitment. They onboard people the first 2 weeks on the job. That's all they do, is take these courses and work and sort of blitz their way through them and get certified as full stack web developers. And that way they all have a kind of common framework and a common language. That's been enormously successful. They branched into a couple of other fields now they're experimenting with. But in all, 3,500 employees have successfully completed these courses, or 3,500 enrollments and maybe 60% completion, 70% completion. The complete opposite extreme from that very focused approach would be L'Oreal, which was our first big enterprise customer. And they just wanted to build a culture of learning. They felt, we'll be a better company if part of the daily, the weekly activity of our companies is that they're learning and growing. And so they even encourage their employees to take music appreciation courses. I mean, they don't have to be job related, but they've made a good chunk of the Coursera platform, I don't know, a couple of hundred courses available to their employees, and they drive enrollment by these sort of culture examples. They send messages about how so-and-so took this course and here's what they felt they got from it and all of this. So they're doing a lot of internal marketing, driving very successful employee engagement, even though it's not highly structured. Sort of in between is Axis Bank, and this is more the modal case. Axis Bank's a large Indian private bank, and their idea was, we want certain specific employee categories to acquire certain specific skills, and so we want a curated set of courses for each group of employees in the company. So they have, it's over 100,000 employees that are eligible for this program, and each group has its own set of curated courses that they get, and there's a high degree of user satisfaction. By the way, we know we're filling an important gap because our NPS scores and learner ratings are just off the charts. It's like both from the companies, the administrators, and from the ultimate learners. The next examples are from governments, and I hold these up just as examples to say that there are folks around the world that are doing what the United States should be doing, okay? Singapore, I'm going to mention 2 Singaporean programs. One of them is the kind of focused approach that we saw in the New York Bank, and that was, we need data scientists. So they actually have a competition. People apply. They get government sponsorship, 200 at a time. They do on-site tutoring to go with the courses, and the students take the 9-course sequence from Johns Hopkins that takes you from nowhere to somewhere in data science, and it's been highly successful, 78% completion. And when you complete, you have to put out the money for the course, and you get reimbursed with a $300 bonus when you finish, and it's been working very, 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 very well, and seems to me a nice paradigm for what maybe state workforce development programs could do around here. I don't think here we'd require people to come up with the money up front, but some little incentive bonus and sponsoring it or co-sponsoring it would be an interesting way to encourage learning. In Egypt, the government is working with an NGO called the Next Technology Leadership Program that's trying to reduce youth unemployment. And they're taking 18 to 22-year-olds and who may or may not be in school and giving them courses in technology and business and entrepreneurship. And That's been extremely successful. Of the people that are in this Next Technology program frame of reference, the people, 100% of them are enrolled in these courses, and their completion rate is actually the highest of all our enterprise customers. It's in the mid-80s. So very, very impressive results there. So another example of workforce development and meeting a pressing social need. And then finally, a more global approach is the Singaporean Skills Future Tax Credit, in which all citizens of Singapore over age 25 get a $500 tax credit to apply to any job-related learning that they undertake. And this could be go to a course at National University of Singapore or National Nanyang Technological University, or it can be taking an online course. They've certified, as the United States federal law at least does not yet allow, they've certified online providers like Coursera and Udacity to be eligible for this tax credit. And so we have 600 courses and 80 specializations that are certified, and we are the largest single user. I mean, that is to say, more dollars have been spent supporting, issuing credits for Coursera courses than any other educational provider. So I just give you these examples, essentially to illustrate there is a lot of potential here. I mean, we really are at the beginning of a revolution in lifelong learning in the workplace, whether sponsored by companies, whether sponsored by governments intervening in those with greater need than those that are already fully employed. I think there's a tremendous amount to learn, and we're very excited to be participating in this development. So thank you. I'm told I have 2 minutes and 46 seconds left. If anybody has a question, Jack.
If you're a university president,
Yep.
not Yale,
Uh-huh.
and you sit through that and you say, and you remember that you're delivering this at 10% of the cost the typical institutions of higher education charge, how do you respond?
Well, okay, there's two answers. I mean, two parts to the answer. The first part is people in a residential on-campus program are getting more than just the content of a course. So we all know that. It's a formative time in one's life. It's a socialization experience. It's a personal growth experience. It's a networking experience. It has many collateral benefits that are separate from the content of the classroom. That's worth something. Is it worth a 90% premium? I'm not sure, but it's worth something. And so that's one. And the other is, isn't this just a signal that schools ought to get a little smarter about how they deliver education, and why not leverage faculty more highly and combine? I mean, look, we know that learning is best actually not live with a lecture like this format. If I gave you a quiz now on what I said, you wouldn't do too well. You'd have forgotten a lot of it. If I had broken up what I'd done into 6-minute chunks and given you quizzes every 6 minutes, you'd remember a lot more. But so shouldn't more technology be used in the classroom? I was on a panel this morning about China, and one of the things that they've done there with tutoring, teaching English and test prep and so forth to high school students, is they use literally a two-teacher system, where the high-value teacher, the great teacher, is giving the video lecture, and then there's a person in the classroom who actually is not the superstar, but is earning a living and is helping answer students' questions and providing the guided learning. And we know from lots of research that that's actually the optimal combination, is to have assisted, support plus the online delivery. I think we're done. Thank you.